better quarter, because she serves you quarter time and I serve you half time. So she will be back. So welcome to First Parish. We are a liberal, religious community. We welcome all. We place our hope most fervently in the process of our living and being and acting for justice and compassion and kindness in the world. Now I will ring the chime, but we have your attention. This morning's service is going to be a little bit different, so I will just tell you what's going on as we're moving along. Come march with me with your masks on and let us sing and parade around the congregation. Those of you at home, get up and parade around whatever room you're in. Welcome to morning worship, in case you weren't awake before. We are called to gather as a spiritual community. We arrive out of many singular rooms, wrote Kenneth Patton, a humanist Unitarian Universalist. Here we are reminded of our deep human connections and yearning for a community grounded in the spirit of life and love, a community committed to compassion, justice, and peace. Let us join together with breath, with light, and with spirit in common worship as we light our common chalice, a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. And Cindy Leno and Anne are gonna come up and light our chalice and read our chalice lighting words this morning.
With this flame, we kindle the light of love. May it warm us within, glow among all the love light of the universe, shine brightly on the connections between, and light up our pathway beyond.
We increase the light when we join together in song and in prayer and in breathing. Let us do all those things as we sing hymn number 1008 in the turquoise hymnal. When our heart is in a holy place. Please rise as you are able in body and or spirit. Amen. Maybe I should have titled this morning's service, "Where is the Holy Place, and how do we get there in our hearts?" Some religions believe that there are places where the spirit or the soul goes after we die. And some of those places are considered to be desirable, and we call it heaven. And some of those places are considered to not be so desirable, and they're called hell. As Unitarian Universalists, we don't have a single belief or creed about what happens after people die. We leave that to each of us to find our own meaning. But we do think that in our living, we can live in ways that make heaven or hell right here on earth. So we encourage one another to work toward making earth and living more like heaven as much as we can. So the story this morning is about heaven and hell. It's about the difference between heaven and hell. And Stephanie, can I change to the other microphone? Yes, thank you. Change to this microphone. Hello? All right. All right. Can you all hear me? Yeah. Great. And is this working on Zoom? I'm going to tell the story. So this version of the story, and I have to say there are many versions of this story. I actually heard one from my grandmother who was born in Russia sometime 2 centuries ago. So, but this story takes place in Japan. And it's about an old woman, and she wants to know what the difference is between heaven and hell. And so she goes to one of the monks, and she convinces the monks, and it takes some time to show her the difference between heaven and hell. So the monk puts a blindfold on her and takes her somewhere, and then they take the blindfold off, so she doesn't know how she got there. And there she is in this room filled with all these round tables, and every table is piled high with the most delicious looking food. Just feast, fruits and vegetables and meats and fish and all sorts of good things. And there are people seated around every table, and they're seated a bit away from the table, so the table might be there. And they generally eat with chopsticks in Japan, but you could see that if the table's all the way over there, these chopsticks wouldn't quite reach. Luckily, they had very unusual chopsticks. Their chopsticks were on the end of a long 3-foot stick, so about this long. And am I doing well? Is it close to 3 feet? And everybody around those tables, they did not look happy. They looked hungry. They were very thin. They hadn't eaten. And they were cranky looking, and their faces kind of had funny splotchy colors on it. And they were all grumpy. And the woman kept looking, and she could see why. Here they were with these long chopsticks. They were able to get to the food at the table that was far away. Obviously, their chairs didn't move. I mean, I just would have shoved my chair up to the table, but that wasn't a choice. So they would be able to get the food, but there was a little problem getting it to their mouths. Didn't quite work. And the monk says, "This is hell." And the woman said, as the people started crying in agony, "Thank you, I've seen enough." And they put the blindfold back on her, and they took her out, and they took her to another room. And they took the blindfold off, and it really looked very much the same. Tables piled high with this lovely looking food, delicious. People people with 3-foot-long chopsticks sitting in chairs far away from the table. And but everybody around these tables were happy. They had rosy cheeks. They were a little bit chubby. They clearly were eating well. And the difference is, this is heaven, said the mom. Everybody was getting food and feeding the person across from them. The difference between heaven and hell. For the joys and the concerns and the sorrows which were not spoken this morning but held in the silent sanctuaries of our heart, for those joys that were shared this morning, the gifts of this particular season of dressing up, the gifts of having family visit, the difficulties with illness and the joy at recovery. For the sorrows and joys around the world, which are not with any of us, but are in the larger world, those who are hungry, those who are in the middle of war. Somewhere, many places today, new people arrived in the world for their first day and their first breath. Let us just breathe together for a moment and hold all of that in our hearts and our prayers. So how do we put our hearts in a holy place? What do we need to let go of sometimes to place our hearts there? So people who are contemplatives, whose life's work is about always trying to find that holy place in their hearts, in their minds, and relationships with themselves, with those around them, among, between, and also for many of them beyond, with God, or however you name the source of all, the spirit of life, the eternal. So I'm going to invite you with your masks on this morning to do something that I was taught by a very wise teacher a long time ago about connecting to that holy place. A little help. Doesn't always work, but sometimes it does. So I'm going to assume that most of us know the hymn Amazing Grace, and this particular version of it that starts out, Amazing grace, how sweet thy sound. And that's all we're going to do this morning. And we're not going to sing any words. Turns out, and I expect there are those here who could explain it better than I can, that if we sing that song, the whole of it, but we're just going to sing a little part of it this morning, on the following sounds, ah, e, I, o, and oo, that it opens up places in our bodies, especially around our hearts, but in all places. And I invite you to just be present with how the sound reverberates inside your body. So this is not singing. If you don't sing, we're intoning. We are just making sound and opening our hearts in the hopes that perhaps on this day, one of us just might find that holy place for a moment. Maybe all of us. Maybe it'll be tomorrow. You may rise if you would like in body, if that works, but you may also stay seated. So do what's comfortable for you to sing so that your lungs can move. And we're going to start with we're just going to do that short piece. And then we're going to move to the next vowels. Let us breathe together. You may be seated. Now that our hearts are open, spirit of life, spirit of compassion, at this time in our year here in the Western Hemisphere, the time when many consider it the thinness of the veil between those who are living and those who have come before us, is very thin. Let us open even wider still. To the spirit of understanding and learning from those who came before us. May we expand ourselves beyond the stories we typically tell of our ancestors into an understanding of their deeper lives and their deeper characteristics. May we see, even among those whose lives didn't go well, the courage, the valor, the strength, the love, the needs, the inabilities just all those things that make us diverse and different in the realm of creation, which we did not do ourselves. And may we extend our love and compassion back towards those who came before. I invite you in this moment, if you would like to speak names aloud, to just go ahead and do so. It is okay if we all speak at once. It is like smoke going into the air of the universe. It will be heard. Let us say those holy names. Max. Abe. Let us extend to ourselves that same loving kindness and compassion for the diversity that lives within us, that came inherited and through DNA, and that we pass along to the generations that follow. So may it be. Amen. We do not have this morning either the piano or the video of Draw the Circle Wide, but we typically sing Draw the Circle Wide, and at this moment, I'd like to invite us to draw that circle a little wider. Please rise as you are able, and those who know the song, the words are draw this, yes? That would be lovely, Jeff. That would be, what a gift. Thank you. So the words are draw the circle wide, draw the circle now. I'm not, oh, they're up there, better yet. Let's go. So we will take the offering for the work of this free church in a moment. We typically split the collection that is not designated for pledges that in the plate. So today, half of the plate will go to the Hamilton Garrett School for Music and Art. And I share these words, you did this last February, these words from Reverend Linda that she said about this last February. They still seem true. Because African American spirituals are considered folk songs, they are in the public domain. This morning we sang When the Saints Go Marching In. that is an African American or Negro spiritual. No one holds a copyright, and these tunes are legally free to use without paying any royalties or obtaining any permissions. Later today, we will sing a folk song from South Africa titled Siyahamba. There is a growing awareness of the systemic and systematic exploitation of Black artists and artisans by primarily white institutions when the work and creation of Black artists is incorporated into someone else's cultural expression, such as our worship service this morning. So in honor of the many times over the years that this congregation has used Negro or African American spirituals, we are sharing this offering this morning with the Hamilton Garrett Music and Arts, a nonprofit that's committed to the development of Boston's next generation of innovative artists through the celebration and preservation of Black music. The program provides high caliber formal music instruction to youth throughout Greater Boston, preparing them for a future in music that challenges inner city youth to see themselves as positive producers of culture, music, and the arts as a whole, rather than merely consumers of it. If anyone in this congregation is so moved to actually make a personal connection with the Hamilton Garrett Music and Art School, please reach out to speak to one of your board members or me about this. The offering for the work of this congregation will now be gratefully received and we hope gratefully given. So I looked at the sermon title. I wrote down, Letting Go, A Journey in Faith. And I just kept having this image come into my head that I actually used years ago in a sermon. But it was of Tarzan going from branch to branch across huge expanses. If any of you remember those movies of Tarzan, they were amazing to me as a child, but really all I thought about was falling. I took one look at them swinging out of those trees and I just thought, oh no. And that's the image that came into my head of letting go. I thought, I can't come here and preach that, right? We're all afraid enough of falling. But that is the reality, and that is why letting go can be really hard. Really, really hard. So it takes faith to let go. Now, I want to say something about that faith. I'm pretty sure whoever was the stand-in for Tarzan in doing that was very well trained in the art of doing that kind of gymnastic feat. So we shouldn't let go without training. It might be like going up skydiving without a parachute. And I say that sitting here across from Jeff and Shanadine, who had skydiving as part of their wedding. You didn't go. Thank you. It was, I'm just going to repeat this so everyone can hear it. It was cloudy, so the skydiving didn't happen. However, that was right up there with falling out of the tree for me. But it does take a reasoned faith. And we are a liberal tradition. We talk about reasoned faith and not just blind faith. So it's good to have some training before you decide to go jumping from tree to tree. And that's what we do here every Sunday morning. We give ourselves some training. It's what we do when we do what seems like just the ordinary everyday work of church, figuring out who's going to pay the oil bill and who's going to turn the heat up and how the lawn is going to get mowed and who's going to write up the contract for the next minister. But that's all the work that we do that's preparing us and also asking us in the same moment to let go and engage in acts of faith, because we have to trust one another. We say those words like it's simple and easy, trusting one another. So I feel about trusting people the way I feel about jumping out of airplanes. I'm going to make sure that my parachute has been checked 4 times at least, and that I've had a lot of training. And then I have to learn to do the really hard work of letting go. The really hard work of actually trusting, even if it doesn't work out well. Because unlike falling out of the tree or skydiving. If things don't work well, we have ways to repair them, to forgive, to work at what went wrong, to reason through it, and to find our way back. So when I think about letting go and I think about faith, I always think about this poem by Denise Levertov called The Avowal. As swimmers dare to lie face to the sky, and waters bears them, as hawks rest upon air and air sustains them, so would I learn to attain free fall and float into Creator Spirit's deep embrace, knowing no effort earns that all-surrounding grace. To have faith means to let go of trying to control it all by ourselves. So, for the most part, many of us, both in this tradition of Unitarian Universalism and many of us in this room today, who probably mostly identify, but not all, with the white Western Euro culture that is dominant around us. We've been taught that we have a lot of control over our lives and our world. In fact, as a baby boomer, I'm pretty sure that's an ethos of my generation, that we can control it all. Of course, we may be learning otherwise as we age, because there are things we don't control. There are letting goes that happen in our lives, that happen for everyone. The most obvious one being everything living dies. The trees, animals, humans. We hope we won't die until we've lived long and rich lives, but that is not always the case. For enslaved African Americans and Black Americans who are oppressed in this culture, who are just one among other groups, but in this particular case, the tradition of the jazz funeral parade is one that comes from a culture and a group of people who were enslaved. They had little control over anything in their lives. It was a lot of learning to let go over and over and over again, and not for their well-being often. And so there developed this tradition, I understand it mostly to come out of New Orleans area, the greater area around it, that when people died in that community and there was much sadness, often because their deaths were not a matter of natural time. And so people would mourn, they would gather in a home where the body would be laid out in wake fashion, which is part of many other cultures' traditions at the end of life. which are rich traditions full of honoring with Jesus. Still, those who do believe that, death and a release into a freedom that could not be found here on earth. It was a celebration of the preciousness of African American life in a culture that does not believe Black and African Americans and other people of color are worth as much. It doesn't matter that we personally may believe differently. That is the truth of the world in which we live and of this culture. Hopefully, it is in the process of being let go. It will be a long process. We who have more choice about letting go, but who may also feel the need more often to be in control, perhaps need to look within our own selves and our lives at what we can and do need to let go of, that we can honor more closely the preciousness of this gift of life that each of us has. And perhaps we look sometimes to our ancestors because their lives too were often a process of letting goes they had no choice about. And so maybe there's something for us to learn in that, looking backwards and telling ourselves a different story perhaps than the ones that we've told ourselves over and over, so we can see with new eyes. The pandemic, for all of its loss and difficulty and tragedies, has given us an opportunity to look and see how letting go of some things can build our spirits to more fully appreciate the dearness of the life we have. In Unitarian Universalism, we don't believe necessarily in heaven and hell after life, but most of us know in our hearts and our minds that we are very capable of creating here on earth a heaven or a hell. May we work to create more heaven in ourselves, among those we love and with whom we meet and worship and work, and beyond in whatever way that has meaning for us, including with all the other living things around us. Let us rise and march again as you feel able and called, but let all our spirits rise. We're going to sing a song to close this morning. The hymn is called Siahamba. It's number 1030 in the turquoise hymnal. If you have never sung it before, we're going to have our musicians play it through once, and you can carry your hymnal with you as you march and put it please back in the pew when you're done for our benediction. And we're going to sing it, so I'm going to say the Zulu words, and we'll sing it through once in Zulu, and then we'll go to We Are Marching in the Light of God. But here's what it sounds like. Siaham be kukenyen kwenkos, siaham be kukenyen kwenkos. And you know what? Just go for it. Thank you, all you brave souls. The flame goes out to await our return next week into this sanctuary and onto Zoom. In the meanwhile, may we carry in our hearts and minds the warmth of this flame within, its glow among all the love light of the universe, its bright shine in the connections between, and its light up our pathway beyond. Let us go in peace, knowing that our lives and those whose lives we connect with, that no life is without meaning, that living itself is a precious gift. We thank our ancestors for the gift of life they bequeathed us. Amen, shalom, blessed be. And service has ended, and do we have a postlude? No.